Hello and welcome to the Daily Climate Show. Coming up, homes with electric cars and heat pumps are saving more than £1,000 a year as inflation continues to rise. Europe's most powerful electric charging hub has opened in Oxford with the capacity to recharge a car in 20 minutes. And a year's worth of rain in 3 days around Sydney leaves 50,000 people facing evacuation from their homes. Hello and welcome to the Daily Climate Show, where we track the changes happening to our planet, hear from the people hit hardest by those changes and report on the race for solutions. Now, we start the show with an exclusive about the amount of money being saved by households using electric cars and heat pumps. And the good news is you'll be making big savings compared to households using petrol or diesel or gas boilers. So let's take a look at the numbers for you. Now, the research by the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit has found that households with fossil fuel cars and gas boilers are spending £1,180 more each year than their electric counterparts. And with inflation, that's almost doubled from 620 from last year. And this extra spending is expected to rise to £1,600 in October when the energy price cap rises again. Well, joining me now from the Scottish Highlands to talk through this is Simon Cranmer-Grean, Head of Analysts at the ECIU. Simon, thanks so much for joining us. My first question is what you make of those savings.
Thank you for having me. These savings illustrate what households are painfully aware of, which is that over the past year, the price of fossil fuels has soared, and this has had a huge knock-on effect on bills. And the only real way to avoid the pain of fossil fuel prices is to stop using them, whether households or nationally. And as you pointed out there, an electric household with a heat pump, an electric vehicle and better insulation was already saving over £600 a year on energy bills last year. And the Office of National Statistics shows that as of May this year, that's risen to almost £1,200. And our assessment is it'll rise even further to around £1,600 a year saving with the October price cap.
Simon, you make very good points there. I suppose the question of those upfront costs, and I'm talking about perhaps heat pumps that can start at around £7,000 for low-income households. That's a big chunk of money, isn't it?
That's absolutely true. And if we think about heat pumps, the government currently has a grant, the Boiler Upgrade Scheme, and it can bring the cost of a heat pump installation down to around the same price as a gas boiler. So households who are thinking of having to replace a gas boiler anyway, for whatever reason, now have that option of a heat pump, which is now viable. And the government's working with industry to bring the actual base cost of a heat pump down to around the same as a gas boiler by the end of the decade to make them even more accessible. And also, there are many easier options as well that people can consider. Insulation is a really important way of reducing your gas bills. And there are millions of homes in the UK that don't have topped up loft insulation. That's a very easy thing to do. And don't have cavity wall insulation. And these each cost a few £100s. And again, for some people, that's too much at the moment. But that's where schemes such as ECO, the Energy Company Obligation, comes in. It's a scheme funded through bills, which the government helps around, well, more than actually 100,000 homes a year to get better insulation and heating systems. And that can save an average of £600 a year for poor households under the current gas prices.
Simon, what is your advice there? You've made some points about insulation, and we did that on the weekend climate show with Tom Heap, and he went to visit someone who was installing insulation. But what advice do you have for people watching at home that are thinking about that energy bill that's coming in? What advice can they do? How can they make their home more energy efficient without breaking the bank?
Well, as I say, there are some simple insulation measures that can still be done to a lot of homes: loft insulation, cavity wall insulation, draft exclusion. Simple measures that are relatively cheap for those who can afford. And for those who are really struggling and can't afford the upfront costs, then look into what your energy supplier can offer through the ECO scheme or possibly through the Boiler Upgrade Scheme.
OK, Simon Cranmer-Grean, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Well, let's take a look at today's other climate news now. And climate protesters have struck for the 5th time in a week at a major art gallery, sticking themselves to the frame of a copy of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. 5 Just Stop Oil supporters attached themselves to the frame at the Royal Academy in central London. It comes as 6 people believed to be from the same group were charged over track invasion at the beginning of the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. An energy super hub opens today in Oxford, designed to decarbonise the city by providing rapid charging for dozens of electric vehicles at any one time. Now, the site combines Europe's most powerful EV charging hub with the world's largest hybrid battery and is powered by renewable energy. Now, the project is part of a planned nationwide network of super hubs focusing on reducing carbon emissions from transport to support UK's clean energy transition. Meanwhile, sales of battery electric vehicles in the UK have grown by more than 14% in a month, but continuing supply chain shortages are affecting the production of plug-in hybrid vehicles, with sales falling by more than a third there. Now, the Queen's property manager has mapped 5 areas of the coast off Cornwall and Wales which could be developed for offshore wind projects. Now, the Crown Estate identified areas with deeper water and higher winds which are suitable for floating rather than the traditional wind farms. Now, the plan is to deliver 4 gigawatts of offshore floating wind power to almost 4 million homes by 2035. And gardeners are being urged to plant with climate change in mind. The Royal Horticultural Society's Planet Friendly Garden highlights solutions to help the climate crisis, including allowing lawns to go brown in summer rather than watering, and planting trees and hedges to help store carbon. Now, as many as 50,000 people are facing evacuation as severe rain continues to fall around the Australian city of Sydney. Experts say climate change has made the rain much worse after years' worth of rain fell in 3 days in some regions. Our correspondent Nicole Johnson is in the town of Windsor, near Sydney, and she sent this update.
A rescue on the outskirts of Sydney. This family believed they could handle the flood. But the water rose so fast, before they knew it, the only way out was by boat.
Waking up at about 2 a.m. and seeing water creeping up to the house, it was difficult sleeping, but it's definitely scary, especially with kids.
Already this year, there's been multiple floods in New South Wales, and people are tired of it.
Flood fatigue. There was COVID fatigue, this is flood fatigue at the moment with me. That's what I'm feeling. The 2 words to describe it, I'm just tired of the floods.
More than 30,000 people have been evacuated from homes in and around Sydney, or have been warned to get ready for it. As yet again, Australia's east coast is battered by rain. A month's worth of it in only 2 days.
It's incredible. In the last 18 months, we've had 3 major flood events in this area, and we're talking about water depths getting way above head level in some areas, and multiple people having to be evacuated, animals needing to be rescued, and also people as well.
Wild weather saw a cargo ship stuck without power and drifting towards rocky sea cliffs. A helicopter rescue had to be aborted. Eventually, it was towed away from danger.
This major bridge on the outskirts of Sydney has been lost under a mile-wide river. And with the floodwaters still rising, people are bracing themselves for even more homes to go under.
So they're getting ready, moving whatever they can to higher ground or a shipping container. This is an area prone to flooding, but not this often. Keith Levy moved in here 6 months ago. Since then, 4 floods. The ground floor is under a metre of muddy water. He's given up bothering to pump it out.
Is this climate change?
I think partially. I think there's a lot of factors. I think dam management as well is cause of what's also going on, and also the human footprint we're putting on the area as well.
With barely time to recover from one flood, the region is hit with another. It's been called Sydney's new normal, but nothing feels normal about this. Nicole Johnston, Sky News, Sydney.
And before we go, we want your climate questions, by the way. Anything that's ever mystified you or whatever you want to get to the bottom of, you can scan the QR code on your screen right now and you can send us your questions, some of which will be answered on our new weekend climate show hosted by the environment broadcaster and author Tom Heap. And you'll be able to watch that on Saturday and Sunday at 3:30 here on Sky News.